Welcome to another amazing episode of MMA from London to LA. I am your fight professor, Colin Crandall, with my very good friend over in England, the brilliant and great-looking Callum Sanderson.
Thank you. Thank you for the lovely introduction. Thank you. Good to be back.
It is indeed. Always glad to have you, Callum. And we've got a lot to talk about, ladies and gentlemen, on this show. And we're gonna recap for just a short while this last UFC fight night, and then we'll spend a bit more time on the upcoming big UFC 294 event from Abu Dhabi, and go from there. We're gonna make this probably a quicker episode. Sometimes we'll go for an hour and 30, hour 15. We're gonna make this under an hour, do our very best. So you won't have as long a broadcast, but then it'll be jam packed with information and entertainment. So what I'm gonna do, looking at the undercard from this past week, Emily Ducote, Ashley Yoder was a pretty competitive matchup, and Emily Ducote, just a better wrestler, younger woman, did appear to take that fight. Seems like Ashley Yoder can't get a decision to go her way, and a lot of times that's again this A side B side crap, and not that she deserved to have the decision there, but it almost seems like the judges see a lot of losses on someone's record and almost don't consider giving them the decision, except for in this circumstance our main event. But seems to be less likely the more losses you have that you win the decision, even if you should have actually won it. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I find it hard to have sympathy for judging, and I maybe I should be a little bit more sympathetic, because I know it's not easy and it's very subjective. Sometimes it's just clear. Like, I know a fight can be close, but even if it's close, there's a lot of the time there is a winner of a round. I just think you should just score round by round rather than looking at who won the fight, because it was similar to the Valentina Shevchenko situation.
Yeah.
He scored it round by round, but got to round 5 and thought, oh, I actually think someone else won the fight. Well, you haven't thought someone won the fight because you've been scoring it round by round. So I think that's what happens. And I suppose it's human error and bias, isn't it? At the end of the day, there's always going to be something.
Yeah, indeed. It does seem that way. By the way, before we continue, let everyone know here that we are indeed the preferred MMA programming of Scotland Yard and, of course, of the royal family. King Charles loves this broadcast. I think I'm his favorite American MMA journalist. Callum is by far his favorite British journalist.
100%.
Yeah, so King, we're glad you're watching the show here, and Scotland Yard, always glad to have the Yard supporting us here. So I'll have some fish and chips with me and Callum, and the next time I'm over there. Although Scotland Yard insists that if we have with the King, they have to be there, and I don't know how well they like each other.
Yeah, we'll have to make something happen.
Yeah, we're gonna work that a little bit, but we'll figure it out between Callum and I. Anyway, continuing on. Chris Gutierrez, this will go through the prelims really quick because in an effort to keep our word about the time. Chris Gutierrez is a really good fighter. I definitely had a feeling he beat Haley. He would beat Haley Alateng. Alateng's a tough guy, but Gutierrez continues to look impressive, don't you think?
Yeah, he is a very impressive fighter. I always like watching him fight as well. He always brings a fight, really good fight to watch, and deserved win in my opinion.
Yep, agreed. Melissa Dixon, Arena Alexeva. Hardly anyone knows them. All respect to them, but Alexeva was kind of being the more menacing girl at the weigh-in, and Melissa seemed relaxed and upbeat. And I tend to favor those that are a bit less in your face in the weigh-ins. Not that I don't like the Diaz brothers, but they're not always in people's faces either. They're pretty kind of real who they are. But Melissa Dixon looking very impressive. Now running her record to 6-0 out of Coventry, England. Had you heard of her prior to this event?
I hadn't, no, but they've got a perfect record so far. Bantamweight division needs a bit of fresh impetus, in my opinion. Be interesting to see how far she can go in this division, because I don't think the path's quite clear towards a belt at the moment, especially with Amanda vacating and there not being clear 2 number 1 contenders for that belt at the moment. I think the path's open. So if you can string a few wins together and make a bit of noise, you could be fighting for a title a lot sooner than you think.
Indeed, and if she won, she would be the first ever female British UFC
Yeah,
champion.
yeah.
And she's training out of a gym. It looks like Lions Gym Coventry. How far is Coventry, England, from where you are?
So Coventry on the so we travel to go from sort of London to like the Midlands, etc. We travel from London, Houston. So from my house to London, Houston, looking at about an hour, and then from London, Houston to Coventry, you may be looking, if it's the fast train, maybe about an hour and 45 minutes.
On top of the hour or altogether?
Yeah, on top of the hour.
Makes sense. Okay, so
driving, probably do it in about 2 and a bit hours.
Have you visited there before?
No, so I've gone past Coventry because I have family in Wolverhampton, which is Wolverhampton's slightly further than Birmingham, where Leon Edwards is
right.
from. So I've gone past Coventry quite a lot. I've never actually been to Coventry though.
Interesting. Well, you may have to if Melissa Dixon ends
up
being.
Go
do it. You can be one of the first people to interview her.
Yeah, definitely.
How is that? And then I'm sure with your relatives over in Wolverhampton, and that must be your English Premier League team, or I think it isn't, right?
No, it's Liverpool. I do have a soft spot for Wolves, though. They're a good team and they run pretty well. So
very cool.
Good.
Okay, so continuing on, and that's a good win by Melissa Dixon, and I think we will hopefully see her again very soon. 32 years old, getting her UFC start a bit later, but I think in the 135-pound weight class, we had Sarah McMahon in the UFC till she was like 41, and we have a lot of the women 37, 38, and like this. And so I think at 32, she's she'll fit in. Definitely a great fighter. 3 finishes by KO. Continuing on in this event, real quick, we had Terrence McKinney making quick work of Brandon Murat. I had that feeling. Terrence really came in there. He wasn't, as you guys would say, he wasn't messing about in that fight, right?
Literally 20 seconds. He was not looking. He was not looking to do 3 rounds in that fight. He wasn't getting paid by the hour. He said, look, I want to get in there and get out as quick as possible. No injuries. And look, it's smart, especially with it coming up to the end of the year. There might be some spots that open up on some of the later cards, like in December, even November. I mean, 20 seconds. He might find himself getting one more fight before the end of the year, and it could be good for him. He's a fighter that needs a bit more experience and just needs to be in the cage and feel more confident and comfortable. And I think you could see a really dangerous side to him. We saw that at the weekend. He looked brilliant.
Yes, indeed. And I like him a lot. He's a very nice guy. It's funny because he's got the image of the fun-loving guy and the wild, crazy guy, but he really is a very thoughtful, nice man. And so I've interviewed him. He trains over there with Travis Luter MMA, my man Justin Adams, Kevin Holland.
Yeah.
And I know that, and I think also he's a personal friend of Jamal Hill, and I know Jamal trains out of Michigan, but I think they've done some work together. And then you guys got the Michigan guys there, Chaos Williams and Joaquin Buckley. So a bunch of good guys that I think are back and forth training with each other, and really great group. Anyway, continuing on, so happy for Terrence. Continuing on, Tainara Lisboa looked very good, beating her fellow Brazilian. No, it's not. Yes, it is. She beat her fellow Brazilian. There were 2 Brazilian female fights on this card. That's unusual. So 4 Brazilian fighters in 2 Brazilian female fights, and the Brazilian winning this one was Tainara Lisboa, the Panther. Interestingly enough, she is also in that bantamweight division with the Coventry fighter Melissa Dixon, and so they both kind of were impressive here. Dixon in her UFC debut, was it indeed that? Yes, and then Lisboa, I think the same. No, indeed not. Lisboa had beaten Jessica Rose Clark earlier this year, and now has 2 wins in the UFC. Maybe they may see each other somewhere down the line.
It would be interesting to see if they're matched up. Lisboa looked really good. I don't know if they'll match make them next.
Maybe not, because they're both prospects. Yeah, I would think they would. They should probably.
But it'd be a good fight between the 2, though. I'd look forward to watching that.
It would indeed. And the other British female fighter, what's her name? The one they call Poppins?
No, I know Jojo Wood.
No, no, yeah, but the Joel Wood, right? But no, this girl is out of Team Alpha Male. In fact, I'm gonna go crazy if I don't know her, if I can't find her name. So let's find it real quick here, and it is you have a British female UFC fighters, and we have. I can't believe they just showed a line of women and they're not showing. That would be absolutely ridiculous because she's probably the highest ranked out of all the British female fighters. And I cannot believe they've showed 25 women, most of whom are either no longer in the UFC. Okay, this is gonna drive me nuts. So who did she beat? I
When did she
think
last fight?
I think she fought about McKenna, someone McKenna. Let me
No,
see.
it still doesn't ring a bell.
Yeah, Corey McKenna. She's quite good, and I understand you have your two boys in your family, and so I don't blame you because she hasn't been fighting high up on the card, but she has a record of 8-2. She's out of Wales.
Okay.
She's Welsh actually,
Okay.
and she's a good wrestler. She's training with a very good team here.
Oh yeah,
in,
the Alpha
in
Male team is
Yup,
phenomenal when it comes to that.
yup. And her nickname is Poppins, I guess, like Mary Poppins,
Mary
right?
Poppins, yeah.
And in the UFC right now, she is 3-1, and actually won the Contender Series as well. She had a close split decision loss to an American fighter, Elise Reed, that arguably she should have won. And if that was a win, she'd be 4-0 in the UFC, and she'd be on a 7-fight win streak. So I
Wow.
always say that essentially is. So yeah, you can look into her because she is.
Yeah.
Now she's much smaller. She's not in that bantamweight class. She's in the strawweight class. But yeah, she's definitely right now. She is the UK female UFC representative. That would be the highest ranked. I believe she's top 20, perhaps even top 15 in that division. But yeah,
What did you say her name was again, sorry?
Corey McKenna, Cory McKenna, out of Wales. Is this city in Wales actually spelled correctly? CWMBRAN?
Yeah, so the Welsh so you've got English spellings and the Welsh spellings. So Cardiff, I'll see if I can find it. But some of the words I wouldn't know where to begin with how to pronounce, but they're spelled different.
Almost
in
like
Welsh
Gaelic
and
a little
English.
bit, where they're very, very odd, right? Kind of like the Irish Gaelic spelling.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
nothing like what because this would look like Suwumbran.
yeah. It's sort of that, like to look at, they look impossible to pronounce.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm sure it's not Suwumbran. But anyway, yeah, Corey McKenna. So that's a shout out. But a few
Yeah.
minutes on there. We got to get back on track. But yeah, look her up. Brilliant. Okay, so then going quickly through it, Darren Elkins again proving that Father Time cannot defeat him. Yes, he will once in a while lose to someone exceptional, but
Yeah.
even at 39, even if you're good, that's not enough. You got to be really good. I think almost like he's the gatekeeper for getting to the top 15 now. And
He's such a
you know,
savage.
and the reality is if you're not really, really, really good, Darren Elkins will beat you. And at some point that won't be the case. At some point, as he gets into his 40s, he's going to be 40 next May. At some point, that won't be the case. At some point, just a decent younger fighter will beat him because he's lost a step or slowed down. I think several of us, including the odds makers, felt that would be the case tonight with TJ Brown. And TJ Brown was giving as good as he was getting, but just that grinding wrestler determination. Many of you might remember Darren Elkins from a fight about 5-6 years ago against Mirsad Bektik. And Bektik was beating the brakes off of Darren Elkins. It was ugly. He was busting him up so badly. It was like, I think the commentators were saying, how much longer is Elkins' corner going to even allow this? And then Elkins comes back and knocks out Bektik, halfway into the third round. So this guy is an incredible warrior. It was a great win for him. A bit surprising. I did think this was the time at 39 that he would be just a bit off, and for a minute he was, but then in the end he wasn't.
Yeah, that fight you were just alluding to, I remember Joe Rogan was speaking about that because I think he was on commentary and he was speaking about that on his podcast, and he was physically crying. He was like, it doesn't get better than that. It's like to see the emotion of Joe Rogan recounting that story. But even this fight again, it's just like he just puts a pace on guys that it's either you sink or you swim, and a lot of people can't swim in that pace. And you just saw him systematically breaking him down, and you're like, Elkins is going to do it again. And then he gets a submission win, and you're just like, how does he keep on doing this? But he's so fun to watch. But it's almost like he has that method to the madness. Like, even though it might look chaotic, he's just like, he just sticks with it. He's almost so stubborn in his approach that no matter what you do to me, I'm still going to be here. And you're either going to have to knock me out or you're going to have to live with me for 3 rounds or 5 rounds sometimes. And he's just brilliant. He is brilliant. Yeah. Again, I'm with you. I don't know how much longer he could do what he does. But in the time he's doing, I'm just going to enjoy it because the fight on Saturday, you're thinking there's no way you can keep this pace up and hang with this guy for another 2 rounds. And then you're thinking, all right, in the last round, maybe he's going to get tired out. And he's the one that tires out his opponent and then gets the win. I mean, incredible. He's
just a very mentally strong guy, and I think he has that confidence that he's not going to be broken. His spirit will not be broken.
Yeah,
and he's always in it. And a guy like that is scary. A guy like that is a stud. And it's unfortunate because his overall record, almost for certain, he probably won't be in the Hall of Fame. But I wish they did have a Hall of Fame for guys who perhaps were never in the top 10, but were close and just showed tremendous fighting spirit.
Yeah.
You know, like a fighting spirit category would be great. But yeah, great win. Continuing on, Kristen Rodriguez and Cameron Saaiman. There was no way to know what was going on there. You have a 25-year-old against a 22-year-old. I fade anyone under 26 as far as betting, which means I go against them. And they're both under 26. But then when I looked at the guy at 22, I'm like, no, well, I'm really fading him.
Yeah.
Because except for John Jones, 22-year-old doesn't really have much of a spot fighting. But, and you know, Saaiman is a tough guy out of South Africa. And even though I think that fight was a pick'em, or maybe he was a slight dog, I believed more on Rodriguez. Rodriguez had that wrestling. Rodriguez was able to dominate and beat the teenage prodigy, Raul Rosas. And the wrestling, grinding, tough guy for Christian Rodriguez is proving now to be a force. However, there is a caveat and there is an asterisk to that. The weight miss. Yeah, he came in 5 pounds over the championship weight. It should have been 135, but then you have the 1 pound allowance. So he was technically 4 pounds over if you include the 1 pound allowance. That's a lot at that lower weight class. So there is absolutely going to be an asterisk with that, which is unfortunate. But still, he brings his record up to 10-1 with 7 finishes. And Cameron Saaiman has now lost his first fight but still is 3-1 in the UFC, which is a very solid position to be in at the age of 22 years old. So they'll both be back. And it's just, I think some of these fighters that are from outside the United States that are extremely young, it's hard to put them against a really good American wrestler who's a few years older than them and a few years more experienced. And I think that was a big ask of a 22-year-old. And he was in it, though. He had his moments, but the man they call Sear. And then the weight advantage as well, though. In all honesty, probably, whoops, there we go. Probably dropping stuff off my desk. Probably if I was the team Saaiman, I'd say, hey, doesn't matter. He cheated in this fight anyway, being over the weight. So, just leave it off, as you guys in Great Britain say. I think that they'll be back. They might as well, too, because there was the unfair advantage in that. And but Saaiman will be back.
So this is my thing. So he fought Saaiman was excellent, but he did lose the fight, and it was a fair result on the night. And look, Christian Rodriguez, excellent fighter, fought excellent as well. Like, it was a really great fight to watch. But I'm watching it and I'm like, Dana gives fighters crap like Stephen Wonderboy Thompson for not taking the Michel Pereira fight. And I get it, you're a promoter, you want to see the fight, and to you, you might not think 2-3 pounds is a lot, but it is, because it's not just 2 or 3 pounds we're talking about in terms of weight discrepancy. We're talking about one man who put themselves through the absolute worst to get those 2-3 extra pounds off, and another who didn't. So while you're rehydrating yourself, you're having to rehydrate those extra 2-3 pounds that you mentally and physically drained yourself of, whereas the person you're fighting didn't have to do that. And in this case, it's 4 pounds, and it's not his first time, it's the second time he's done this now. And you think if he was able to get his weight under control, he'd become a contender in the bantamweight division. He would, because he's that good. But there's got to be something here. There's got to be some sort of an asterisk next to a loss like this, or because it's not fair that Simon's lost his unbeaten record to effectively someone who's not adhered to the rules.
Right.
Yeah. Like you wouldn't, if someone eye gouged or gave groin strikes to someone 2-3 times in a fight, you'd say it's a disqualification or you take a point away. There has to be something of equal relevance here. Even if you're going to take a fight and someone's coming overweight, maybe they start a point deficit then. But there's got to be something, because it's not fair on these fighters who are making weight, then losing a fight, losing out on a bonus potentially or two, and the person who didn't adhere to the rules is getting rewarded for it. Because it's not like it's going to go on a record and say Christian Rodriguez 10-1-0 with asterisks 2 weight misses. It's not going to say that. So look, I'm a big fan of Christian Rodriguez. I think he's an excellent fighter, but I don't think he's going to be allowed to fight bantamweight in his next fight, which presents even more problems for him now, because I think he's too small for 45.
Yeah, I think you could be right, and I agree 100% with your sentiment. It's not a good thing, and they should do something to level the playing field in the case of people missing weight, especially by a substantial amount like that. You know, it's one thing. It's one thing if you miss by 4 or 5 pounds at light heavyweight or middleweight, but at bantamweight, that's quite egregious.
Yeah,
I was going to say you mentioned 1 or 2 pounds is nothing, but no, 1 or 2 pounds is not nothing. You're saying, because it is not. I'm not adhering to those. However, 1 or 2 pounds probably is nothing at a local off license in London. Am I right? What would you be able to get there for 1 or 2 pounds?
You'd probably best get yourself a drink and a chocolate bar for £2. For £1, probably not much now.
Right. Yeah.
Get yourself a nice drink and a chocolate bar, though.
That's it. You know, if you have that in your pocket, there, you're not. Your selection is quite limited.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. So moving on. Michel Pereira, Andre Petroski. There's no reason to spend too much time on this. Andre was given like a week notice on this fight. He's just a really good guy. He's a really good fighter. It's just you can't. It's really frustrating, because he's a top, or he was. I don't know what they're going to do with him now, but he was a top 20 guy, maybe even top 15 at middleweight on a 5-fight win streak. And I think what's frustrating is this, and Andre's a very tough East Coast guy. I'm from the Midwest, but in Michigan it's closer to the East Coast. So where I was raised is kind of this East Coast mentality, and I know there's exceptions everywhere. There are some very tough guys that are from the West Coast, but in this country, in the U.S. and the East Coast, you have more of the old-fashioned, old-school, really tough guy, more of the old-fashioned men than on the West Coast. And I think that Andre Petroski is this kind of guy, as are most of these professional fighters, that he's not crying about misfortune and not, having anyone feel sorry for him. But nevertheless, I feel like you have a fighter who's ranked that high. He's on a 5-fight win streak. If they were just paid a little bit better, and if they just didn't have this specter over their head that telling the UFC no puts you in a fair bit of trouble, because otherwise I really think his camp, as a fighter, they're probably saying whatever, but I really think his camp might have said, we don't need this. His bank account's fine. Yeah. And why should, we're not some unknown guy that needs to be taking a fight on 1 week notice. No, we're not doing that. You know, and it's unfortunate because, but I will tell you this, in all honesty, just because he got caught quickly does not imply that he would have got dominated in that
No.
fight. And I don't think he would have. And I think if it did get to the grappling exchanges and strength in close, Andre had that fight. And if Andre ended up on top, then Pereira was in huge trouble. But man, with these small gloves, like with the big gloves, because Petroski had his guard up.
Yeah.
And with a boxing glove, it would have been blocked. It would have just careened off the arms. But with these little gloves, it just threaded the needle right through there. He didn't even make a mistake. Only thing could have been is maybe his arms, but then you can't see anything.
Yeah.
Right?
You can't see anything,
Yeah, a little bit to see something. And it just sucked, I mean, well, great for Pereira, but, Pereira's a great fighter. I had that gone on, I think that would have been a very competitive fight, but it really does tell us to make a mental note that unless the person having the much shorter notice is just far, far superior a fighter, then you more than likely will want to lean toward the other side. If they're both very good, quite talented competitors, then more than likely getting it one way. And you know what? The last thing I'll say is this. Anyone can get caught, even if it was not a short notice fight. But I talked to a couple people in the know and that know Andre and that know the circumstances and also know fight promotions. And it's just more than likely he would have not made that mistake. He would have been more prepared. His reflex would have been better. He would have been really pressing his striking because this guy's a really good striker. Is what it is. So I kind of put an asterisk next to that one, although technically there was no one missing weight. But yeah, got caught in a short notice fight. It is what it is. I don't think it proves how Pereira is going to do at middleweight, although he looks very strong. And I don't think it's going to mean that Petroski is going to lose any more when he has a full camp.
Yeah, I echo all of that. It surprised me how much bigger Pereira was, and it just makes me think, how on earth did he make 170? Because he was a monster, huge at 85.
Why he kept missing weight, but he was a monster.
Yeah, excellent shot to get the victory. But I do echo what you're saying. And here's the thing: 5 days notice. It's not just a case of 5 days notice. You're right. You use a fight camp not just to brush up on your skills, but you formulate a game plan. You come up with tactics, but also your body and your mind become fight ready. So a kick or a punch that you may get hit with on 5 days notice, you probably wouldn't get hit if you have a full camp because you're just sharp, you're on point. And you're right, if these fighters getting paid more, but I think it is more down to the case of you shouldn't be penalized or fear the organization for saying the word no, especially when you stand to gain very little from fighting on 5 days notice against a guy who's not even ranked in the division. We're not saying if this is Izzy you're getting an opportunity with, then yeah, there's an upside there, because even if you lose in 20 seconds, you fought Izzy, your social media goes up. Yeah, your social media following goes up. You get more notoriety, which means you could get more sponsors, more payment, more money from outside the organization. There was no win-win here for him. It was a lose. I mean, you go away with bragging rights if you win, but apart from that, there wasn't much else, and not really fair on him.
No, I feel like they should do him a solid after this.
Yeah, you'd hope so.
Full camp and because he took one for the team there as well.
He did.
Yeah, it is what it is. Continuing on, Jonathan Martinez Yanez. I knew that was a good match going into it. It's funny. When I was watching the pre-fight, 5-minute pre-fight hype before that fight, something about Yanez just seemed off to me. I don't know what it was, but I knew that he had just lost to Font, and Martinez was on a 5-fight win streak. Martinez is with a great team, Factory X, and I really am not going on and trying to push people to bet, because I never want to do that anyway, but I really was leaning heavily toward Martinez as it got closer to fight day, and so it didn't surprise me. But yeah, he looked great. The leg kicks, man, are something to be reckoned with. And I know a lot of people look and say, well, why doesn't the other guy do it? It's a skill. It takes balance, it takes aim, because if you're not aiming right, you're going to kick someone in the groin. And also, if you're not aiming right, you can break your own leg, as we have seen many fighters do. So a lot of fighters don't want to mess with that, leg kicking. And the ones that do, have practiced. And, but that was a brilliant performance. 2 losses in a row for Giannis is going to be tough because he was flying so high, I was going to add something else, but I'll leave that off, as they say in England. But nevertheless, a great win for Martinez. Giannis is a tough guy to have hung in there, man. His legs. This is 48 hours later here, and his legs are probably still throbbing, I would imagine. Although I hope not.
Yeah, it was hard to watch some of that fight. Like, some of those leg kicks were so brutal, and you think, how hard must Christian hit, because he was landing on his, like, you alluded to it in terms of, we've seen fighters like Weidman and Silva break their legs when they've caught the knee of the person they're kicking. He was catching Yanez's knee all the time, and it was hurting Yanez more than it was hurting him, it seemed. Some of the leg kicks were just brutal. I think the stoppage was excellent. Could have maybe been stopped slightly sooner, to be fair, but
yeah, I would agree.
When he took the last leg kick, you just knew it was done. And he's got 2 leg kick knockouts now. I think Edson Barboza is the only one who's got 2 as well. So all between them, both were fighting on the same card. It was almost like it was meant to be. But I'm very interested to see what happens with Yanez next, because he was on such a high trajectory. Got sent Rob Font, no shame losing to Rob Font, and then now this. No shame losing this fight either, but you just wonder how it messes with his mental strategy going forward, etc.
Indeed. Sorry, I had to see how much battery I have left. We've got enough to go pretty properly. But yeah, I agree. It'll be interesting, and he's a tough guy, so I hope he continues on, and I'm sure he will. Viviana Araujo and Jennifer Maia. On my Twitter Spaces the night before, my pick was Viviana Araujo, and I think everyone in the room disagreed with me. And I know Jennifer Maia had looked good lately. I know she had. I know she's more of the crafty veteran, but she had so many fights and been a pro for like 14 years. And the other girl, even though the other girl was a year older, Viviani, she was the fresher fighter. And I really was surprised that no one was with me on that. I just said I really think that the younger, maybe she's a year older physically, but the fighter with the less mileage on her and the fresher, younger attitude and the better athlete, I think, is Viviane Araujo. And she did exactly what I said. And, I'm not trying to clown anyone for picking Maia. Maia is a tough fighter, but Maia is starting to kind of look a bit like a middle-aged fighter. And Araujo, even though she's 8 months or a year older, still looks like a very strong, athletic, younger fighter. And I think it may just be the mileage on Maia, or I don't know if Maia perhaps had children or perhaps had some weird injuries, but I've been watching her a bit, and she just seems to be a bit like she's not feeling like she felt 4 or 5 years ago anymore. And I think that I'm glad I was correct on that. Good fight though, and Maia definitely was in there throwing and giving nearly as good as she got.
Yeah, I agreed. I don't know if she's ever recovered from losing to Shevchenko.
Yeah.
I think she worked her way so hard to get that title fight, gave a good account of herself, but she's not really looked the same since. And you're right, it's interesting to see whether she will stick around or whether she may call it a day. But very good fight and very good win for Araujo, and very interesting to see where Araujo goes next now as well.
Indeed. All right, now the last one, and then we can jump on, and I think we can still keep our word. Maybe if not 45 minutes, maybe 50 minutes. That means 15 minutes more. So let's go with this one, even though you hate to not do at least a couple minutes on it, but I think we can still do it justice with 2 or 3 minutes here. Edson Barboza, Sadiq Youssef, an epic fight. First round, Youssef just looking like he was going to finish the veteran. The odds makers felt that it was his fight. All of us, I think, in the know gave Barboza a chance, but I think the majority of media was picking Yusuf to edge him just to be a bit too young, a bit too good an athlete. And I was among them. I actually was cheering for Barbosa because I like to cheer for the older guys and the veterans, but I felt that more than likely Yusuf would be too much for him. And early on, it looked that way. I mean, man, it's weird how life just sometimes you're so close to winning, and then you don't, and other times you're so close to losing, and then you snatch victory right out of the jaws of defeat. And I think what it was that Barbosa was the one snatching victory right out of the jaws of defeat after that first round. And he just, it's interesting because Yusuf, I mentioned in my Twitter spaces as well, and all my Twitter spaces are recorded for posterity. I asked the panel right before we finished, do you guys think that Yusuf is going to do everything he can to win this fight, like a lot of grappling and wrestling, because he knows he's got the advantage there? Or do you think he's going to say, hey, I'm the younger guy, I'm the better athlete, I'm going to beat this bad boy wherever I want to be? And I think most of the guys said, he probably might do that, but he shouldn't. He should go in there. And he did exactly that. It looks like Team Lloyd Irvin was like, man, this Barbosa is nothing, man. He's garbage now. Our guy is just better than him everywhere. Sadiq just stand in the pocket with this guy. And Sadiq looked really good. But after a while, I was watching it and saying, Sadiq, you're just gonna give this guy all this room to throw these kicks, and when that's his strong suit. And but Sadiq is a really talented guy. It was a war. I think this probably will be good for him because he's only 30 years old, or 31. Was he 30 years old? And I think he really was never really in a lot of trouble, but he did get touched up. And I think this was probably a really good learning experience for him. I remember a throwback in boxing, James Toney from my home state of Michigan, and he also lives in Ann Arbor, Michigan, where I lived for a few years as well. And he fought a guy named Mike McCallum, the body snatcher, in like 1990 or something. And that was a really, really close fight. I think they gave it to Toney, or a draw, but it really could have gone to McCallum. And at that point, McCallum was like 38 and Toney was like 28. And Toney had the undefeated record, and McCallum had like 4 losses, but like 35 wins or whatever. And Toney learned a lot from that fight because McCallum was so crafty. And I think this could be the fight that makes Yusuf even better. And we could see Yusuf really rattle off 4, 5, 6 wins in a row. But nevertheless, really glad to see the older fighter come in as an older guy myself, and see Barbosa once again. Is that Darren Elkins attitude and mentality? Yeah. His face is all busted up. His eye looks like a big cyborg puffy eye again. Blood on his face, and he's just sitting there coming in, throwing these shots, and throwing these uppercuts, and then that spinning heel kick. But credit to Yusuf for recovering from that. So great, brilliant fight. I'm sure Yusuf will be back, and just another brilliant win from a man in his late 30s here, Edson Barbosa.
I think the last time Barbosa was maybe in a quote-unquote boring fight was probably when he fought Anthony Pettis, and he sort of fought on the back foot. Since then, it's just been top fight, good fight after good fight. If you're fighting or watching an Edson Barbosa fight, you just know you're going to expect fireworks, because he may not be the best, but he's definitely tough. And no one can question his toughness. No one can question his effort, his will to win. And Yusuf gave a really good account of himself. I just want to read some of the stats, Colin, because this shows how close the fight was. Both had 1 knockdown. Significant strike percentage, 51.9 for Sadiq Yusuf, 51.3 for Edson Barbosa. Significant strike percentage, 50.7% for Sadiq, and 50.6 for Edson Barbosa. Takedowns, 1 of 2 for Sadiq, 50%, and 3 or 4 for Edson Barbosa, 75%. Those stats are about as close as you can get.
Yeah, Yeah.
It's crazy how close those are. You're talking about a point of a decimal difference in percentage of striking, and so the fight was excellent, and
It really
both
was.
guys gave such a good account of themselves.
Brilliant.
Could
Absolutely.
Edson, I think, is going to want a big fight now, given his age, and I think maybe someone like a Josh Emmett could be really good for Edson Barboza.
Yeah.
For Sadiq Youssef, I mean, looking at the rankings, he could maybe look at someone like Evloev. Emmett's out injured. I mean, Sadiq
Someone still
Youssef
top
and
20.
Bryce Mitchell.
Yeah, that would be interesting. That would
Or
be very
Sadiq Youssef and Lerone Murphy.
There
England's
we go.
Lerone
That would
Murphy.
be fire. That would be fire.
So,
and then I think Sadiq would say anywhere but England is where that
yes,
fight's gonna
yeah,
happen,
of course,
right?
yeah.
Because Murphy is going to be like, "We'll do it in bloody England, of course,"
Yeah.
you know. And Sadiq, I think, would say, "No, we're not doing that."
Also depends on what happens in the Colby Edwards fight. If Edwards wins, they'll come back to UK.
Yep, very, very true. Very, very true. All right, on to the new card here. Just really quickly, we're going to do the main card only, but really quickly, I see your fellow Brit, Nathaniel Wood, is on that fight. There's a lot of Arabic-speaking fighters on that card, which is fine, and they will be the hometown favorites. So Nathaniel Wood is going up against Mohammed John Naimov. And Naimov has a record of 9-2 with 7 finishes. And in the UFC, he's 1-0, having beaten Jamie Malarkey just 4 months ago. So he is a tough guy, 29-year-old, 5'9", 155, the Hill Man out of Elevation Fight Team, which is a great team there with Drew Dober and Justin Gaethje and the likes. Nathaniel Wood, 5'6". He's always pretty much the shorter fighter.
Especially at 45.
Yeah, especially at 45. And at 45, his only fight, I think, was against Andre Fili, whereas all his other fights were at 135. He's on a 3-fight win streak, beating Charles Rosa, Charles Jourdain, and Andre Fili. This is a big ask for him against Mohammed John Naimov, and the early odds are showing, not even that early, but the odds in that fight are showing, where is it here, really quick, if I can. Here we go. Oh, wow. Nathaniel Wood is a substantial favorite.
Oh.
Wow.
We'll take it. I'm a massive Nathaniel Wood fan.
Yeah,
I really
I have a feeling, He's a 3-1 favorite, though, so you're not going to make any money. But I'm a bit surprised. I would have thought, it's essentially somewhat of a hometown fight for Mohammed John Naimov, but I guess that's not everything. Well, that's going to be interesting. Nathaniel Wood's a great guy, and I've heard a lot of good things about him, but I think there's going to be some late money coming in on the man from Tajikistan. And but I'll cheer for Wood. He's a Brit, and you guys Brits are my friends. So
a big fan of Nathaniel Wood.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know if you want to add anything quick, or can we move on?
I just hope he gets the job done. No disrespect to the other fighter, of course, but I've been watching Nathaniel since he's been in Cage Warriors, and glad he could join the UFC, and he doesn't live too far away from me as well. So I hope he gets the job done, and then hopefully we see a big fight for him in the 45-pound division again as well.
I hope so. And he will nearly always be the shorter man in that 145 weight class. So that's okay. So you also have the Brit, Javid Basharat, the Snow Leopard, who is a very tough fighter with a record of 14-0 with 11 finishes out of London, England. I'm sure you've heard of him. Very tough fighter. He just came off a great win in January. His record in the UFC is 3-0, all by decision. He's going up against Victor Henry, and he's a substantial favorite, larger favorite than even Nathaniel Wood.
Unbeaten as well.
Yeah, unbeaten. So, he should handle Victor Henry, although Henry is tough, and, that's another good British fighter. And then, I don't know if you have anything to add on that. Nothing. Anything? Did you want to add anything on that? Probably I can continue, right?
No, I think he gets the win. Perfect record so far. I think this will be a good way of showcasing him to a different audience as well. And I think he goes on to bigger and better things.
Absolutely. And another fighter representing Great Britain, I think originally out of Dagestan, a man everyone knows, Mohammed Mokaev.
Yes.
The Punisher, 10-0 with 7 finishes, just 23 years old. In the UFC, he is now 4-0 with 3 submissions. And his opponent, Tim Elliott, the rugged American wrestler,
it's a vet.
the 36 years old. He's got a record of 19-12, which could just as easily be like 22-9. Some of the fights were close. On a 2-fight winning streak, this is going to be the biggest test for Mohamed Mokaev yet. 13-year age difference, 23 against 36 years old. Odds makers, I'm sure, are going to favor Mokaev. Let's just see how much, though. Wow, they give the American virtually no chance. It's a 4-1 favorite is Mohamed Mokaev. You know, I mean, he should win on paper, but he better be prepared that this is the first, even though a bit older, this is the first really gritty, good collegiate American wrestler that he's going up against. So some of the positions that he was winning easily, he may be in a little bit of a fight here to get those positions. What do you think?
Yeah, agreed. Mokaev wanted to be the youngest UFC champion, but that obviously got derailed, given that in his last fight, he almost had his knee completely shredded. Again, I still don't know how he didn't tap to that. One thing that is worth stating, though, he cannot afford to get himself in positions like that with Tim Elliott, because Tim Elliott's jiu-jitsu is way too good. The fact that we saw Tim Elliott almost tap out Mighty Mouse, while Mighty Mouse was in the middle of his run in the UFC, it speaks volumes of his wrestling jiu-jitsu. However, I do think Mokaev's rounded out game and his aggression, I think, will get him through this fight. I think it will go to decision. I don't think it will be like an easy fight for Mokaev, but I think that would be really good for him and really set him up for the future. Tim Elliott's, again, always fun to watch. Great wrestling, great jiu-jitsu, good striking as well. But I think Mokaev is favorite for a reason, and I think he gets the win.
Yeah, I think so too. It's interesting in this fight, you have one man 5 years prior to being in his prime going up against another man 5 years outside of his prime.
Yeah, perfect.
So, yeah, definitely a good matchup indeed. All right, now getting to the main event. The main card. Said Nurmagomedov against Muin Gaufarov. Said Nurmagomedov, the one Nurmagomedov in the UFC, not related to Khabib. Tall, lanky guy, 5'8" for 135 pounds. I thought he was a bit taller, but still is somewhat tall. He did lose to Jonathan Martinez, which has aged well when you see what Martinez did to Yanez. And so before that, he was on a 4-fight winning streak, and he's got a very good record, 17-3 with 9 finishes, 31 years old, just still at the tail end of his prime. And in the UFC, he sports a record of 6-2 in the UFC. Muin Gaufarov is out of Tajikistan, and he is 18-5 with 17 finishes, 10 knockouts and 7 submissions, but none of the finishes in the UFC. In fact, he's 0-1 in the UFC against John Castaneda. He had a couple good wins in the LFA. He's a pretty dynamic striker, it looks like. This one should be the return of Said Nurmagomedov to the winner's circle, and he is. You know what? He's only about a 2-1 favorite here, so they are giving a fair chance to Muin Gaufarov, and you know I'm leaning Nurmagomedov, but you know what? I don't know. A hell of a finisher though Gaufarov is, and so I don't know. I'm leaning Nurmagomedov. The picture on SureDog is Gaufarov with WCSF title round. I have no idea what that is. But anyway, your thoughts, Callum?
Nurmagomedov might not be related to Khabib and the family, but we know what they usually bring to the table, and that is grit, desire, and very difficult to beat. The reason why I don't think the odds are too far apart, though, is because his opponent, as you said, 17 finishes from 18 wins. He seems as though he can finish the fight virtually any time in a fight. So when you've got that X factor, you've got that equalizer, you can't bet too far against someone. However, I think Nurmagomedov gets the job done. He's more experienced, it seems, in terms of the UFC, and he just has that know-how, and he's a brilliant fighter as well when he gets going.
Absolutely. No, I think I only have like 8 minutes of battery left, and if we can finish in 8 minutes, we can, for the first time, I think maybe end up under an hour. So let's see what we can do. Yeah, Ikram Aliskerov, it's just hard to know what he's going to do. He's only had one UFC fight. He looked great beating Phil Hawes in the first round, but that doesn't really show a lot of what he's about. He's out of Dagestan, Russia, 14-1 with 10 finishes, 5 submissions, and 5 KOs. He's 30 years old. Worley Alves is 32, but has a lot of miles on him out of Brazil. He's lost 2 out of his last 3 fights, and 3 out of his last 4 fights, and 4 out of his last 6 fights. So this should be Ikram Aliskerov winning this, although he's unproven. And you know what? I wonder if that fight is even still on, because
he's meant to be fighting Imavov, but it's now someone
Worley Alves. Yeah, Worley Alves. Yeah. I see it now. He's a 4-1 favorite, and that should be all Aliskerov. Although Alves is a tough guy. It's hard to know. One guy's only had 1 fight against another guy who's mostly been losing lately. What do you do with that?
Yeah, I think Askarov wins this. I think they've given him a bit of a tee up here. Imavov would have been a really tough fight. It seems like they've kind of teed him up and said it's a short notice fight. We'll give you this person who you should beat, and let's see if you can go out there and beat them in impressive fashion.
Exactly. Absolutely, indeed true. All right, Magomed Ankalaev, Johnny Walker. That's an interesting one, because Ankalaev took some heat in that draw against Jan Blachowicz, although I think most of us felt he won that fight, but not by much. It was really quite close, and they made it a draw. So he's got a bit to prove. He was looking quite good with like 10 wins in a row prior to that, in which he was lost his first UFC fight, getting triangled by Paul Craig, who's now in the middleweight division. And Johnny Walker is just a 6'5.5", almost 6'6" guy who's on a 3-fight winning streak, beating Ewan Kutalaba, Paul Craig, and Anthony Smith. And this is a very interesting fight. I really feel that the grappling advantage substantially goes to the Dagestani Ankalaev. Oddsmakers feel that why am I not seeing anything? Where is it? They show this in 2 grids for some reason. I don't know why. But I'm not even seeing where is Ankalaev. It's they're not even. I can't believe it, because it's like the co-main event, and they're not showing Walker on play. Yeah, they are right here. Ankalaev is about a 3-1 favorite. I think that's right. I think Ankalaev is too balanced for Johnny Walker. Johnny's going to have to catch him on the feet, but Ankalaev is too slick for that. I think Ankalaev wins this fight. Should be fun, though. I'm anxious to see it.
So I agree with everything you said. The reason why... So firstly, it's a massive opportunity for Johnny Walker. He's fighting number 2 in the world. He's number 7. He wins this fight, he's effectively the next title shot for the winner between Yuri and Alex Pereira, which is a massive opportunity. He's long and he's rangy, and he knows how to use his ranges, especially training at SPG with John Kavanagh. It seems as though he's really started to find his groove and his rhythm. I think it's going to be a lot harder for Ankalaev than he believes. I don't think he just has his way in the grappling with Johnny Walker. I actually think Johnny Walker is going to make it really difficult for him to get in, and that's going to hit him some really hard shots on the way in. I'm going to go for a Johnny Walker finish.
Nice. You can get paid on that. Even in the money line, you're getting 3-1 dog money. Yeah. Could very well happen. And I tell you what, the way that Ankalaev looked like he just didn't have all the teeth he used to have as far as the ferocity could very well happen. And if he loses here, then he may reconsider everything he's done. And I don't think he wants to do that. But it could very well be. Yeah, I like Walker, and he's very unorthodox, very tall, big guy. And I think at 6'5", a lot of times these guys that are 6'3", 6'3.5", end up getting a bit thrown off a bit when they face guys that are 6'5" and 6'6", because they're used to being equally as tall, if not taller, than their opponents. And all of a sudden, their opponents, a bit higher up than them and longer. So we'll have to see, but that is indeed a possibility. Moving on to the co-main event, this is a short notice fight. Now it's short notice for both of them, or was Chimaev set to fight someone else? I think it's
Chimaev was set to fight Costa.
That's right. That's right. So it's short notice for Usman.
Yeah.
Now, the reason why Usman, I think, took this, because at 185, he doesn't have to cut weight.
Yeah. Plus, he's been guaranteed a title shot if he wins.
Right. However, still, thinking of a former really dominant champion taking a fight on 2 weeks' notice or whatever it was, it's just quite odd. It's once again, as a fan, it's good to see, but just seems a little bit crappy. Like, you don't see that happening really in boxing. You're only seeing kind of guys that are newer, younger, up and comers, or or guys who have had a really on the downside of the career. But
Yeah.
for someone as reputable and just recently off of his title attempts to be taking a short notice fight. So I don't know. In all honesty, it's going to be a good fight. I think Usman is live. I think he's going to look really strong at 185 pounds. Odds makers are saying, and I'm sure the odds makers have Chimaev. Yeah, Chimaev is a solid 2-1 favorite, a little bit more than that actually. Usman's 36, Chimaev's 29. Usman's a good striker, but he's good because his defense is good. He's got that wrestler power, but he's not like a real technical, fluid, puncher with amazing form and technique and throwing the elbows and everything. He can do it, but Chimaev is the better striker from what we've seen. Both of them haven't fought much at 185, so we really don't know. We haven't seen Usman fight at all at 185 in the UFC, so it's hard to say. Probably Chimaev wins this fight, but I think Usman has a chance. I think that it's a scary fight, and I think the odds are correct, but I don't think I wouldn't suggest. I don't know. I mean, when it's all done, if Chimaev blasts through him, then it will have been smart to take Chimaev at over 2-1 odds. But I think that Usman's going to be in this, and I think if Chimaev can't take him down, and if Usman is holding his own possibly in the striking, it's gonna be. I want to see them do some wrestling, and a lot of guys who are this good at wrestling tend to just stand because they're like, let's not exhaust myself trying to take down this guy who's not gonna go down. And so, but yeah, I think probably Chimaev, but I'm probably cheering for the older vet Usman. I think.
So, firstly, kudos to Usman for taking this fight because Khamzat is one of the most feared fighters on the roster, and Usman has been calling for this fight for a while. One thing I don't agree with is one of these two getting the title fight at 85. Yeah, because they're both effectively welterweights. Neither of them are ranked in the middleweight division, so I do think the promotion have gone with a promoter's hat rather than a morality and a competition hat here.
For fan friendly, not.
Yeah, but this fight in itself is like, I was looking forward to the Costa Khamzat fight. I look forward to this one even more because they're effectively 270-pounders who just aren't cutting as much or cutting weight or as much weight. I think it's going to be a fun fight. I think Kamaru is going to be competitive in the first round, but I think in the second and third is where unfortunately he'll become a bit unstuck because of the short notice, because of a lack of a fight in camp. Plus also fighting at the new weight of 85, an extra 15 pounds. Everyone automatically thinks that's an advantage. Yes, he's more hydrated, but he's now also got to manage his gas tank on 5 days' notice with 15 pounds more extra than you would have normally. So I think that's something they need to look into in Usman's team and Usman's camp. But I think this could potentially steal the show. I think this might be actually the most highly anticipated fight on the show because it's a fight we never expected to see. It's a fight between one man who's an absolute legend and one who's pining to be a legend and on his trajectory to becoming a legend. But I think this fight goes in the way of the younger man.
Yeah, I think so too. But I'd love it to be competitive, and I think you very well could.
Yeah. Main
event of the evening, we have another top fighter taking a fight on short notice. Volkanovski, the active featherweight champion. What was this, like 10 days notice for him or 14?
9 days.
9 days. I mean, and I'll tell you what, because Volk is not feeling pressure from the UFC, just like Usman probably wasn't. They want these fights. I think Usman wanted this fight because it was at 185. He's ready to get into action. Probably. I hope he's doing well enough financially that he didn't really need this.
Oh yeah, I reckon.
Yeah. So, but yeah, he just wanted to get back in there and scrap. And on the flip side, I think that Volk was probably realizing that the Makhachev team maybe were not super excited about getting that rematch going, because arguably Volk beat Islam. And I think probably about 58 to 60% of the people I know agreed with that. And I was one of them, even though it was a really good fight. But I think Volk's team probably said, hey, we take this now, or we might not see Islam for another year and a half or 2 years or something. Right. And so I think that, but damn, I hate that it's short notice for Volk, because Volk, and it's again going to be in a Islam partial audience, the Arabic speaking audience.
Yeah.
And so the odds makers feel that Islam is a 2-1 favorite, solid 2-1 favorite. Yeah. I mean, you know what? Those would not be the odds were it not a 9-day notice.
Yeah. If
this was a full camp for Volk, these odds would be really close. Maybe Islam 1.5 to 1 or 1.25 to 1 even would be more likely. A full 2-1 odds. I think as a gambler, you shouldn't bet on a guy on short notice. It's just going over to Abu Dhabi and the airplane flight. I don't know. I mean, I think I want to see. I like the camp of Islam. I've interviewed the head coach Javier Mendez several times. Great guy. I just think that since Volk won the first fight and didn't get the decision, I'd like to see him win this one, and I think he will. But I don't think I would bet anything on it. I wouldn't even bet that 15 pounds you were just mentioning actual weight in British currency. Not even that on that fight. What do you think?
Volk, for me, taking this fight, and I mean absolutely no disrespect to Justin Gaethje when I say this, but might be the uncrowned BMF in the UFC.
Yeah.
Not only has he gone up for a man that's kind of been avoided in Makhachev, he's doing it again on short notice, which is unheard of. It's crazy, and you could argue he's got nothing to lose, but he has, because Volk is a winner. So he's not going into this with that mindset. He's going into it with, I thought I won the first fight, I'm now going to go win the second fight. And I'm with you though. The 9 days notice, it's a hard ask, because again, he would have already formulated a game plan from the first time, but do you have the conditioning to pull that game plan off? I think Volk goes hard for the first 2 to 3 rounds, trying to get a finish. If he gets the finish, brilliant. If he doesn't, I think Makhachev wears him down and either gets a late finish or gets a dominant decision win. I'm going to go more with my heart than my head. I'm going to go for a Volk round 2 finish.
Yeah, I love it. And there's definitely value when you can get plus 200 to plus 220, meaning that all you've got to do is bet $100 US to get back your 100 plus 210, 220, $230 more.
Yeah.
There's value in that. And it's going to be brilliant though. But man, the fans will be quite disappointed. It's interesting because the fans in Australia were rightfully quite disappointed when Volk lost to Islam there, when he really, in several people's opinion, including mine, won. In this case, I think even if Islam loses legitimately, it's still going to be quite disappointing to the fans who are cheering for him. So once again, it'll be back-to-back fights against the same opponent, not back-to-back, but rematch of fights in both situations where the in-person audience won't be happy.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough. But yeah. Brilliant card, I think, overall though.
Amazing card.
Yeah, I can't wait to see it. It's going to be fun. Some great British fighters there. Some very good fighters from the Eastern Bloc, and overall just a great card. I'm looking forward to it, and you know, this Saturday. It's starting at a bit of an odd time for anyone watching here. I think the prelims are starting at like 8 a.m. Pacific, which means 11 a.m. on the East Coast, and then that would mean 4 p.m. I believe in England, which is
so it's 5 p.m. in England. So the prelims start at 5 p.m., which I'll be honest is beautiful for me. It's like this is a dream for me.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I can't complain in the slightest. So it works out perfectly for me.
We know where you'll be between 5 p.m. and about 11 p.m.
Yeah, precisely. Yeah, I'll be on the Sanderson show doing a watch along. So I'm really happy because doing, as you know, doing 3 a.m. to 7 a.m. is tough. It is tough on the body. So looking forward to this card, and with the changes that have been made, I think, no disrespect again to Costa and Oliver is my favorite lightweight fighter. I think this card's now become even more interesting.
Yeah, I think so too. There's a lot of excitement. I can already feel it, and it's just a Monday. So
exactly.
Brilliant. So speaking of which, let's let people know where they can find us. You go first and mention where people can see your watch along in the Sanderson show and all the great work you do.
Precisely. So you can find me at Callum Sanderson, all social media platforms. Also on YouTube, you can find me on the Sanderson show doing watch alongs, a panel show, and previews, reviews, some stuff for the members. So go ahead and follow me over there for some more content.
Awesome.
And obviously here, you'll find me here as well with Colin.
So. Indeed, yep. And the Hannibal TV, our distributor for MMA from London to LA on YouTube. And then also for me, check Twitter. I'm most active there. I'm going to try to be a bit more active on YouTube. And then my MMA Power Hour we do as just an audio podcast on Twitter Spaces every Tuesday. I've missed it a bit. Those that don't know, my wife of 18 years passed away just 5.5 weeks back. So it's been a bit spotty, my involvement, but I'm not giving it up, and she wouldn't want me to. So we're back. We're back on top of things, and always blessed with good friends like Callum and everything. And so we continue to march on. And appreciate you, Callum. And so yeah, check me out. You're very welcome. Check me out in those different places, and even Facebook, Instagram once in a while. I don't do too much. We did a lot on Facebook in the past. MMA Power Hour going on for years. Check some of my archives. We've got hundreds of hours of MMA Power Hour video podcasts, and I'd say right now we're probably coming up on 40 hours of MMA from London to LA. I think we've done a dozen or more than something like that. Yeah, maybe not quite 40 hours, but we're putting together a great catalog of our show, and always great to work with Callum Sanderson. And Callum, I appreciate you. This is a brilliant show. You didn't come in under an hour, partly because of my fight professoring, but nevertheless, it was great chopping it up with you, as they say. Always great to hear your thoughts. Absolutely. And I guess we can wrap it up here. And any final thought for the watchers?
No, just thank you, and looking forward to the card. So make sure you smash the like, people, and subscribe if you're new to the channel.
Absolutely, please do. We appreciate you a lot. For my awesome teammate and we are the co-hosts. So from co-host Colin, co-host Callum. Thank you, Callum. You're the best. Thank you guys for watching, right? And thank you. And for now, we are going to, as I say on my MMA Power, for right now, we're tapping out.
Let's go. Take care.